If you are planning to drive anywhere in Canada this week, there is something you need to know before you get behind the wheel. A new highway law is coming into effect, and it specifically targets a group of drivers who may not even realize they are affected. We are not talking about a minor rule change or a small fine increase. We are talking about a complete license ban. And the drivers who fall into this category may be shocked to find out they are on that list. In today's video, we are going to walk through exactly who this law affects, what it means for your driving privileges, and what steps you need to take right now to protect yourself. And if you think this does not apply to you, stay with me, because several of the situations we cover today may surprise you. Let's start with why this law exists in the first place. Canadian highway authorities have been tracking a pattern over the past several years. Certain categories of drivers have been involved in a disproportionate number of serious highway incidents. The data pointed clearly to specific behaviors, specific license violations, and specific driver profiles that represented an outsized risk on Canadian roads. Lawmakers and provincial transport ministries responded, and the result is this new enforcement measure, which takes effect this Monday. This is not a proposal. This is not a consultation. It is a law, and it begins immediately. But before you assume you are unaffected, let's talk about the first category of drivers this law targets. And this one catches people off guard more than any other. Drivers with unresolved demerit point accumulations in certain provinces are now facing automatic review under this new framework. What that means is that if your demerit point total has crossed a threshold and you have not responded to prior notifications from your provincial licensing authority, your license status may now be subject to immediate suspension pending review. In some provinces, this threshold is lower than most drivers realize. In Ontario, for example, fully licensed drivers begin facing consequences at 9 demerit points. In British Columbia, that number is different. In Alberta, the rules carry their own specific benchmarks. The new law creates a national coordination mechanism that connects these provincial records more efficiently than before, and that changes things for drivers who may have believed that a record in one province would not follow them to another. Have you checked your demerit point total recently? Many drivers have not looked at their record in years, and that is exactly the kind of assumption this law is designed to address. Let me tell you about Daniel from Manitoba. Daniel drove professionally for part of his career and considered himself an experienced, careful driver. He had accumulated several demerit points over a period of years from minor infractions, a speeding ticket here, a rolling stop there, but had never received a formal suspension notice. He assumed his record was manageable. Under the new coordination rules taking effect this Monday, his accumulated record across 2 provinces was flagged during a routine review. Daniel received notice that his license was under a mandatory review period during which he could not legally operate a vehicle on a public highway. He had no idea his situation had reached that point. He is not alone, but that is not the biggest group affected by this law. The second and significantly larger category involves drivers whose vehicle insurance has lapsed, expired, or been canceled, and who continued driving without realizing their legal exposure. In Canada, driving without valid insurance is already a serious offense in every province. But the new highway law introduces enhanced enforcement protocols at checkpoints and during traffic stops, specifically designed to identify uninsured vehicles in real time. The technology being deployed allows officers to verify insurance status instantly against provincial databases. If your insurance lapsed even briefly, due to a missed payment, a change in provider, or an administrative error on your insurer's side, and you drove during that window, you may now be facing consequences that go beyond a fine. Under the new framework, repeat uninsured driving offenses within a defined period can trigger a license ban of up to 2 years in certain provinces. This is where things become very important. An insurance lapse can happen without you ever intending it. A pre-authorized payment fails, your bank card expires, and the renewal charge doesn't go through. Your insurer sends a cancellation notice to an old address, and suddenly, without ever meaning to drive uninsured, you have done exactly that. If you are not 100% certain your insurance is active and current right now, stop and check before you drive anywhere this week. What happened next surprised many drivers who went through the early enforcement rollout in the pilot regions. Several drivers who believed their insurance was active discovered during traffic stops that their policies had been canceled weeks or even months earlier for reasons they were completely unaware of. The penalties under the new law are significantly steeper than previous enforcement, and ignorance of the lapse is not considered a legal defense. Has this ever happened to someone you know? You would be surprised how common insurance lapses are, and how rarely people find out until it is too late. Now let's talk about the third category, and this one may be the most overlooked. Drivers whose licenses have conditions, medical conditions, vision requirements, or restrictions such as requiring corrective lenses or limiting driving to daylight hours, are now subject to stricter verification under this law. In Canada, when a license carries a condition code, the driver is legally obligated to comply with that condition every single time they drive. But enforcement of those conditions has historically been inconsistent. Under the new framework, condition violations are now treated as equivalent to driving without a valid license for the purposes of highway enforcement. If your license says you must wear corrective lenses and you are stopped without them, you are now facing a mandatory license review, not just a fine. If your license carries a medical condition restriction and you have not attended a required medical review, your license may already have been flagged for suspension in the updated provincial database. Most drivers stop here and assume they are fine, but that is where the mistake begins. Think about how long it has been since you actually read the conditions on your own license. Most people glance at the front and never look at the condition codes. Those codes are legally binding, and under this new law, the consequences of ignoring them have changed dramatically. Sandra from Nova Scotia had a license condition requiring corrective lenses that had been on her license for over 15 years. She wore her glasses most of the time when driving, but occasionally drove short distances without them, particularly close to home. She had never been stopped for it and never thought seriously about it as a legal issue. Under the new enforcement standards, a condition violation of this type during a routine stop now triggers an automatic review period. Sandra's situation, while common, is now a much more serious legal exposure than it was even 1 month ago. There is another detail very few people are talking about. This new law also includes provisions related to highway speed corridor violations, specifically for drivers who have accumulated multiple speeding convictions on designated highway routes within a 2-year window. Canada has been expanding its designated highway corridor system, and speed enforcement on those corridors has been escalating. If you have received more than 2 speeding convictions on a provincial or federal highway route in the past 24 months, your record may now qualify for automatic review under the new accumulated violation threshold. This applies even if each individual conviction was handled and paid. The new law looks at patterns, not just individual incidents, and the next situation may be even more important for a specific group of drivers. Commercial drivers, including those operating under Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3 licenses, are subject to an additional layer of scrutiny under this law. The federal and provincial coordination now includes cross-referencing of logbook compliance, hours of service records, and vehicle inspection certificates. Commercial drivers who have been operating with expired inspection stickers, incomplete logbooks, or unresolved mechanical defect notices from past inspections are now in a high-priority enforcement category. License suspensions for commercial drivers under this framework carry automatic disqualification from operating any commercial vehicle, not just the class affected, for the duration of the review period. If you drive commercially, or if someone in your household does, this is not something to put off until later in the week. Before you assume your situation is resolved, here is a straightforward checklist to go through right now. First, check your demerit point total with your provincial licensing authority. You can often do this online through your province's transportation services portal. Second, confirm that your vehicle insurance is active, current, and that your insurer has your correct contact information and payment method on file. Third, read the condition codes on your driver's license and confirm that you are in full compliance with every condition listed. Fourth, if you have received multiple speeding convictions in the past 2 years on highway routes, contact your provincial licensing authority to understand your current status. Fifth, if you are a commercial driver, verify that your vehicle inspections, logbooks, and hours of service records are current and complete. Sixth, if you have any uncertainty about your license status, contact your provincial motor vehicle authority directly. Do not wait until you are stopped. James from Saskatchewan went through this checklist after hearing about the new law earlier this week. He discovered that his license had a medical review flag that had been added after a visit to his doctor 2 years ago, something his doctor's office had reported to the province as a routine notification, which James had never been informed about. His license was technically in a conditional status that required a follow-up medical clearance he had never completed. James called the provincial licensing office, began the clearance process, and was advised not to drive until the review was completed. He was uncomfortable with the disruption, but far more relieved to have found out before being stopped on a highway. The third overlooked factor that many drivers miss is the appeal and reconsideration process. If your license is flagged, reviewed, or suspended under this new law, you do have rights. Every province has a formal process for appealing a suspension or requesting a reconsideration hearing. These processes take time and require documentation, but they exist precisely because the system acknowledges that not every flag or suspension is straightforward. If you believe your license status has been incorrectly affected, do not simply accept the outcome. Contact your provincial licensing authority, ask about the appeal process, and gather any documentation that supports your case. Here is the most important thing to take away from everything covered today. This new law is not designed to punish careful, law-abiding drivers. It is designed to close the gaps in an enforcement system that has historically been fragmented across provincial lines. Most drivers who are affected did not set out to break any rule. They simply did not know where they stood. And in a system that is now coordinating information more effectively than ever before, not knowing where you stand is no longer a safe position. You drive in Canada. That means you are part of a system that has rules, and those rules now have sharper teeth. The best thing you can do this week is take 30 minutes, go through the checklist, verify your status, and make sure you are driving with full confidence that your license, your insurance, and your compliance are exactly where they need to be. Every driver's situation is different, and this video cannot tell you your specific status. Only your provincial licensing authority and your insurance provider can do that. But what this video can do is make sure you know what questions to ask and why they matter right now. If this video gave you information you did not have before, leave a comment below and tell us which province you drive in. We would love to know how many viewers across Canada are watching and taking action. If you know someone who drives, a family member, a friend, a colleague, please share this video with them today. It could genuinely protect them from a situation they did not see coming. And if you want to stay informed about Canadian driving laws, highway regulations, and licensing updates as they happen, subscribe to this channel. We cover these developments as soon as they are confirmed, and we make sure the information is clear, direct, and useful. You watched this entire video. That means you take your driving rights seriously. Now take the next step. Check your status today before Monday arrives.